Lectures Stink Part 3. What's up, everybody? Lectures Stink Part 3 out of 4. My name's Seth Perler, SethPerler.com. I'm an executive function coach. If you're a parent, teacher, or student and you're interested in supporting students with executive function challenges, this is what I do. If you saw part 1 and 2, you know that we're talking about a student who wanted to be able to pay attention better to some lectures. That was one of the things we were working on in their coaching session that was important to them. And I asked them, okay, what would you rate yourself in terms of paying attention? They said a 6 or 7. I said, cool, how do we get it to be an 8? They told me. I said, cool, how do we get it to be 9? They told me. After the 9, and the 8 and 9 were great answers from them, but I still wasn't convinced that it was a meaningful enough response to create enough change for this student's life. When we can take baby steps and change little things over and over and over, little baby steps, they add up and it creates huge change. And I wanted to create enough change that it would matter. It's called moving the needle. I wanted to move the needle with this particular situation with this student, and I wasn't convinced we were there yet. So I said, how are we going to get your temperature from a 9 to a 10? And the student response was great. They said, similar to the previous one where we talked about the sacred study space, they said to organize their space. Now, I asked them what would get it to an 11, and there's a reason I did that, and I'll explain that in the next video. But I'm not going to talk about the 11 yet. I'm going to sort of back up here. So we said, okay, what would it take to get from a 9 to a 10? They said to organize their space. So I talk about the sacred study space, Seth's sacred study space. So if you're in my membership or you're in my courses or anything, you hear a lot about the sacred study space students need, how to do it, why it works, and all that. So this student said, what would make it a 10 is to organize their space. And as we unpack that, it wasn't just about what they said in the last one, which was a better chair that was more comfortable, but it was really about having the space feel better. Now, I've been working with this student for a long time, and while they do a little bit of organization of their space, they haven't really overhauled it enough. And there's a lot to overhaul there. So what I did was I went on and asked about how to get it to an 11. And then we actually worked on the organizing their space. I'm going to tell you how I did that before I talk about 11. So later on in that coaching call, I said, all right, let's go work. So we're on a Zoom call, right? I said, and in my mind, I knew where I was taking the student, but I didn't tell them everything because I didn't want to overwhelm them. I wanted to chunk it down into small, manageable, bite-sized pieces. And you can all do this on your own to make life easier for you. These are strategies I use with myself and with my coaching clients. So we broke it down. I said, all right, let's do an experiment. So I could see in the room that in the background were a bunch of boxes and a closet. And those boxes have been there for weeks or months. I said, what's in the closet? And they said boxes from when we moved like 3 or 4 years ago that haven't been unpacked. I was like, okay, is there actual room in the closet or is it completely filled? And they said, yeah, there's room. I said, okay, let's do an experiment. I'll set the timer for, I forget what it was, 2 or 3 minutes, a very short period of time, very manageable period of time. And we'll turn off the cameras and you go do your thing. And what I want you to do is take that big pile of stuff. And if there's nothing important that you need right now, just start putting it in the closet and let's see how the room feels. So we did that. Came back 3 minutes later. I reflected a little bit on it. I said, okay, let's go next level. So we did a little bit more of that pile. Then we did an area where the piano was and did that area. And then we did the desk area where the student was sitting. So there was like 4 or so phases where we did little 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 minute timed just pulses or sprints. Because when we try to like clean the whole thing, it is really overwhelming. But my goal, and I want you to get really clear on this, my goal with this student on this day was not to complete the decluttering processes or reorganize all the things perfectly. My goal was, since I knew that stuff hadn't changed in weeks or months, to get it out of the way so that the room felt better. The student said organizing their space would help them get it to a 10. So we didn't do all the details of it. We just got it put away. That doesn't deal with the problem, I know. So at some point, we're going to want to do coaching around, like, now let's deal with this declutter, really get it taken care of for good. Because if you have boxes for 4 years, there's probably a lot of stuff you do not need to live with if you've never looked in those. So, but we're not there yet. Right now, we're trying to just create a great space that's inviting, where they can sit down, focus, and it feels really good. Now, what I want to tell you is this. Once we did this, I asked the student how they feel. So how does it feel in that space? And they're like, much better. Like, we want to feel really good in the space. This is, again, my actual sacred study space. You can't see everything, and it's my space. I'm not showing you my whole space, but this space feels good to me. I love it. I can do my work here. So, I have problems with the space in terms of noise from outside and stuff like that. But generally, I've constructed a space that I love. So we're going to move on to video 4. We're on part 3 of this right now, of Lecture Stink. And part 4, we're going to talk about why I asked them what would make it an 11 and then the results of that. Again, my name's Seth Perler. Give it a thumbs up, like it, leave your takeaways below. Tell me what you think. And if you like my work, grab the URL, share it with some friends right now. I'll see you in a second. Let's go on to part 4.